Thank you, Katarina. Good morning, everyone. This is a great honor to be here, and I thanks AC and ASPBAE for recommend me to be guest speaker in this very important conference. I would like to share my experience in working with grassroots women, particularly women head of the family in Indonesia, the poorest of the poor in Indonesia. And my sharing, I will start with a little give you a brief background on the context of Indonesia. And then I share my story, and I will close it with some reflection from the story. So this is the Indonesian. I think maybe some of you knows and visit our country. So we are up there, and we got our independence in 1945, and then we are under dictatorship in 1965 to 1998. 1998 is really the turning point, and this is also when started my organizing specifically with women head of the family. So we have more than 250 million people now. I think compared to New Zealand is big, but compared to India is not too big. We are multi-ethnic, multi-religion. Of course, Muslims are majority, but I think I can say that we are quite moderate in terms of the Islamic practice in the country. And we are now considered as fast-growing economic country where although the inequality is really huge. This is in terms of gender inequality index in ASEAN, we are very low. We are I think among the 8 countries, we are the lowest one, as you can see, and just recently we have very high maternity leave, so you can understand how the women's movement in Indonesia get very angry with the situation of this in Indonesia. So I would like to start my story and bring you back to the 1998 when we have the very violent reformation from the dictatorship to more democratic countries. During that time, the students' movement, and we joined the student movement, the women's movement, civil society movement, tried to bring down the regime and replace it with the new regime. But unfortunately, it's actually started by the crisis in the region. Actually, Indonesia is the latest one to get hit by the economic crisis at that time, but we are the worst one because it's then come out also with the political crisis in the countryside. So, but we managed to bring down the regime, the Suharto, the president at that time, but we feel like we give blank check to the new regime. So it does not change so much, only change the people, change the clothes, but not the system. So we end up with a very poor situation and difficulties, especially for young women. During this transition, there was a huge cases of rape among the Chinese women, especially in Jakarta. Then the women's movement asked for the president to establish the National Commission on Stop Violence Against Women, because violence happened in everywhere, especially in very high, we call it hotspot of Indonesia, where people ask for self-determination, like in Aceh, in East Timor, in other part, in Papua, in other part of Indonesia. So we, women's movement, managed to ask the president at that time, the vice president became the president at that time, to establish what we call is National Commission and Stop Violence Against Women. In my and the National Commission on Stop Violence Against Women, the first mission is really to document the life of widows in conflict area, because people only talk about how many people die, and mostly men die who are doing this fighting, but then never consider about the women, actually also we call it the silent victims who have to struggle by themselves in the middle of the conflict and also in a very poor situation. So in my personal life, during that time also, I have 3 boys, we're still little at that time, and I have to come with the difficult in marriage situation and end up with divorce. So during that time, then National Commission on Stop Violence Against Women asked me to document the life of widows in conflict area. Then I think, why they asked me? Because I'm women activist from the beginning in 1986. I'm grassroots organizers. Then I understand why this National Commission on Stop Violence Against Women asked me, because at the same time I also have a very difficult situation by myself. So at the beginning I refused that, because I thought, then I document the life of these widows and then taking pictures, asking questions, writing their story, and then so what? What will happen with them? And then I publish this, and people knows about the story, but what happened with them at the ground? So conflict still happen. But then I decided to go around in some places, just to look at the real life of the widows in conflict area, especially in Aceh at that time, because Aceh is very, very bad situation. So this is what I find. I visited several provinces. I meet quite some women with very, very difficult situation. I was in the very, very sad, upset, and broken heart, and very traumatized as well. But then when I meet this woman, this is her from Aceh. She has 5 children and living in very small house, in very poor condition, and have to really struggle in their life because the husband ran away in the mountain, join the Aceh Freedom Movement, and only come back maybe once a year, and then make her pregnant, and then run again. So this happened, but she has a lot of spirit, no? She's like still smile and like keep continuing her life. And then in NTB, I meet some women who the husband has been away for a long time as migrant workers in other countries, like 9 years, but she still considers herself as the wife of this person. And I asked whether the husband sending money. Never, no news, nothing, and she doesn't even know where the husband is. But the whole committee, the family still consider her as the wife of somebody. And in NTT, I met one woman who's get pregnant by the boyfriend, and because of the tradition, the boyfriend only pays some penalty from the system, the cultural system apply there. And then the boyfriend can just go away, and the women have to deliver the baby later on, and then raise the child until like 17 years old. During that time, then she has the responsibility to the family of the man, even though they don't get married. Then when the child already growing up, the child will belong to the man's clan. So this all injustice, I hear the story, and I look all these women, the women without husband because of many reasons, some widows, divorce, they work so hard, they earn so little, and they're so poor, and yet they are discriminated. And we have very strong stigma against women without husband, especially divorced one. I have an experience when I have a meeting with the women in Aceh. So all the widows from this conflict area come to the meeting, and some men at the back, mostly the village head and the Aceh Freedom Movement leaders who watch out what I'm doing there. And then I introduce myself. So I'm Nani. I'm originally from Kalimantan, because they don't like people from Java, so I have to tell them that I'm from other island. Yeah, that's my originally, actually from this Kalimantan. And I told them that I'm divorced, I have 3 sons. And suddenly this man stood up. I recognize him as the head of the village that we are having the meeting. And he said, "Did you say you are divorced?" I said, "Yeah." So he said, "How dare you come to my village, want to work with my women, while you cannot even taking care of your husband?" That's why, and he pointed his finger on my face. And I look at the women in front of me, and they are so terrified and they would like to cry. I was so angry, but I tried to control myself not to say anything there because they may get me, they may took me to the mountain if I do something bad. So I just tell him that I have my own reason to get divorced. It's not because I'm a bad person. So then I understand how this stigma against all these women, towards these women, is very, very bad. So that's really motivated me to, okay, I do this, but I use the documentation not as the aim, but as the means to organize. So then we train the women to take the pictures of their own and telling their story, because there are a lot of stories are not told to other people about what happened actually with the women during the conflict. They get raped, they get all this torture and all this kind of thing. So that's how we organize. Then we start organize. There are two main things. First, of course, to overcome the poverty, to get out of this poverty, to have access to certain services and also financial access in order to continue their livelihood activities. And the second, to really fighting the stigma. Because in Indonesia, we only have one word, Indonesian word, for all the kind of women without husband. We call it janda. So this is very stigma word. So if for example, if you go to the village and you said you want, especially the men, if the men want to go, I want to see janda in this village, then people will have very negative thinking that these janda, these widows or divorce or these women, actually they are prostitutes. So this is what we want to fight. I really would like to, I argue with the National Commission on Stop Violence Against Women that one of the mission of the program is really to transform the word janda into the women head of the family. So this is it's very basic one I do. The first thing I do is really change the janda as a very stigmatized word into women head of the family, just to show that women without husband is very important and they play a very important role as the head of the family, and they are responsible for that, and they are very honorable women. So this the first thing we introduce as the women head of the family. Of course, we got a lot of resistance, especially in Aceh. We are not allowed to use the word of women head of the family. They said it's against Sharia Islam, because in Islam, there is no women as the head of the family, no women leaders. Women cannot be leaders, women are the followers. So in Aceh, particularly during that time, we use janda. We keep using janda as the program title. Then we start, actually we start with saving and borrowing. We didn't talk anything, like nothing political. It's only, okay, how we can get money. Because they don't have money and they don't have nothing, so we start from saving and borrowing. It's more implement cooperative principle. It's different from microfinance. This is a cooperative. Why we choose this? Because we have rooted culturally in our system collective, collective saving. So people put money together and then save it together. So we want to revitalize it. We want to build that from what we have rooted in our culture. And this also space for these women to not only like they save together, but also to build confidence, and they can share stories and learning not to depend on somebody else. Because for 33 years during the regime, the dictatorship regime, the government always used money to control the people's voice and feelings and other things. So actually people at the grassroots usually depend on what the government give. So they always feel poor, they are poor, and then government give money as the one of the program. So we want to change that mindset. Then we want these women, although we are poor and we don't have others, we can stand on our foot. So that's why we do. So of course they said, I said, we don't have money, how can we save? So we asked them whether they have, they always drink sweet. They buy a lot of sugar. So we said, why don't you cut your sugar half? So then save the money. Or maybe they have banana in the garden or coconut, they can bring it as their saving. So that's how they practice this saving. So no lending at the beginning, just saving. This is really to start transform their mindset that if they want to do something, they have to do it by themselves. And then slowly women can borrow to start very small things, continue whatever they have been doing and as their livelihood. With the money, and then reform it, then they decide together how much money they can be charged as the fee for the group, so the money grows. And also in this co-op, they exercise the leadership, the democratic system, because no matter how much money you put, you only have one vote. You only have you have the same rights and responsibility in the group. So this really space for this kind of process where we train them, not like doing the in-class training, but more in practicing whatever against all what they have been practicing in the community for the past 33 years. And then we found out, so during this time, we didn't do any like research, we just follow the flow, we just follow whatever the women say. And we found out that more than 65% of them are illiterate. So it's really the opposite of the data that we understand. The government said there is almost no people illiterate in our country, but we find out these women, 65% are illiterate. So we then started with the literacy program, reading and writing and helping these women. It's funny when we start train the women how to make their own signatures, and how to read. And then they understand it has been a long time, they has been manipulated by their ex-husband to sign things that actually permission for the husband to get married again. So they just sign because the husband said, you have to sign this because this is for the income. So they sign, but they don't understand what it is. So then when they can read, they understand, oh, it's really like open their eyes that they can understand a lot of things about information and about the document, all the things. So we have a very intensive literacy program even for the elder people. Really, last night when I hear Billy's presentation, it's really also, I reflect on what we are doing by this learning. It's not only, we use also a lot of dancing and singing, but reading really part of bring the women's back to life and spirit. Then slowly the group become organization because they practice all the organization principle, and they have their own name for the group as the women head of the family. This is already slowly become the movement in their own village. Use this as the political identity, because we have huge number in most of area. Then they use this number also to negotiate with the local government. So slowly, but not totally, the stigma get out of them, but slowly people pay respect on them because they don't depend on other support, but they depend on themselves. And also the collective voices, the collective power that they organize is really powerful. For example, in one district, they control almost like 25% of the votes. That's why all the district heads who want to run the election and want to win, they have to negotiate with them because they have all this, they control the voices. And we have women who then, this is the only woman in one particular island, it's called Aotearoa Island. It's very traditional and very remote, very less developed island. She's the only woman among like 2,000 PEKKA members there who have high school graduate. Then she was motivated to run for the election as the village head. and the women then support her, although it's really against the tradition. The tradition not allow women to take leadership, especially if the woman does not have husband. But she just try. We said, okay, you try, then we support her with all the information and the way she did a campaign. And she won. She got like 87% voters. That means men and other people really vote for her. And then when she ran, she became the village head. She really running the village very well. In the first year, for the first like almost 50 years of independence, she managed to bring electricity to the village, and also the road and health clinic, where for a long time they don't have. So they get a lot of respect, and other villages then see and non start thinking of having women as their village head instead of men, because they said, oh, for a long time we have men, we don't know that there's money, like 300 million Indonesian rupiah every year. So where's the money goes? Because after with these women, then the transparency of information apply in the first place. So they understand how they use the money, and they decided together. They try to overcome the village problem. So then it's motivated. Now we have like almost four women PEKKA members become the village head in that particular island. What is the achievement in the past 15 years? I think one is the visibility of these women head of the family. For a long time, we are invisible. We are not in the statistic. National statistic only says women head of the household. So we differentiate between household and family, because in one household can have like 2-3 family. So as you can see from this data, finally in 2011 and 12, we did our own census, mobilized our women to actually show government how many we are, the women head of the family. So the blue color, actually the government data in the same village, the same place, and the same, we do the census, this by name, by address, and the red one is actually our data. So there is a gap between government data and our data, and we show them that actually this is what they're missing in our poverty alleviation program. So for a long time, these women has been ignored, has been excluded from the whole system. That's why they're remaining poor. And the cycle, because they are poor, they cannot send the children to school. So it's like that. So there is this gap, the visibility. So now it's well recognized by the central government as well as to the district level. So it's now the women head of the family become one of the priority of all the program, especially for poverty alleviation program, social protection program. The visibility of where these women are, they are actually in the poorest of the poor. If you see this quintile 1, 47%, they are the lowest income. But if we put this together, actually quintile 1 and 2 is more than almost 71%. It's huge number. So if we are talking about the poor in Indonesia, these are women. These are the women head of the family. And they are the one actually who support our microeconomic and contribute to when the crisis happen, these women are the one who's stand there to save their family. The numbers of women who are illiterate is half the women. So now the government also have huge literacy program. Now they realize that actually the statistic before is not correct. They say that there is no more illiterate people in our country. And also we have the education program. We can also show the government why these women cannot send their children back to school, because they have, this is from our research, that even just to send the children to elementary school, which is actually free in our constitution, but they still have to pay for the transportation because it's far away, like at the sub-district or district while they're in the village. And also for other things like uniforms, shoes, bag, and books, they have to spend so much. And the higher education, the more they have to spend. And other achievement, we got a lot of women become leaders now in different level, and they have become organizers, very effective organizers, and helping all other women, and have regular consultation with their parliament members in district and as well as at the national level. We have very strong legal empowerment program when we train our grassroots leaders to become paralegal, helping with legal matters. One of the biggest problems that women head of family in Indonesia face on legal matters. Most of them do not have a legal marriage or under our law, and that's why then men can just abandon them. In more than 60% of the marriage in rural area are not registered in our law system. So their marriage are not recognized. So when the violence happen, in the domestic violence happen, or the husband get married to other women, these women cannot bring it to the court because it's not recognized by the court. They are not registered. Because of this, then all their rights are violated, and the children's rights are violated. Children do not have birth certificate. Some people ask me, why is birth certificate is so matter in Indonesia? Birth certificate is the right of the children, and if they don't have birth certificate, they cannot enter the school, because now maybe elementary school they can, but with the higher education they need to show the birth certificate. So this is like first identity of every children in Indonesia. So that if they don't have, if the mother and father, if the parents' marriage are not registered, they cannot get birth certificate. If they don't get birth certificate, then they cannot enter the school. So all this cycle like that. So we have very strong legal empowerment program. And also we have, with the saving and borrowing is developed, become cooperative, and then the women develop their community learning center. This is based in a rural area, but cover many villages around there. This is where the women come together, sometimes become safe house, and sometimes become where they do a lot of experiment in their economic activities, and they have some farming, small farming here, and learning a lot of education program, including literacy program, equivalency program, working with other organizations. So this has become the main things now in the PEKKA. They have Click PEKKA. It's like mobile legal clinic. So they run this every month to different villages where people come for consultation. But we don't have lawyer, because most of these women have very low formal education, but they are very good in practice. But and then we work with legal aid organization in nearby, or with the university who provide legal assistance from law school, usually the student from law school helping with difficult cases. This is some lesson learned, challenge, and also reflection we have. We start with the affirmative action, organize only the women head of the family. But then it's difficult to really put them in mainstream process, because where these women get empowered, but other women do not. We have a lot of women coming, and they have husband. They said, why don't you organize us as well? It's difficult to organize women still with the family with the husband into the women without husband, because they have different what you call dynamic. They have different issues. They have different challenge. So we then decide to organize them in separate, but they can become like coalition with the PEKKA organization. And the leadership development program for these grassroots women, the grassroots women leaders grow, and few of them then become very elite as well among the women. So this is one of the challenges that we very carefully taking care. And saving and borrowing is cooperative. We are challenged by microfinance program, microfinance approach, particularly Grameen model from Bangladesh, for example, which is adopted by our government. It's different approach, but it's mushrooming as well in different part where we are developing the cooperative. So now become like competition. The microfinance are running by, it's almost like a bank. It's owned not by the community, it's owned by maybe organization, maybe private. They give their lending money. But in cooperative, actually it's belong to all these women. So they decide together. And also our economic empowerment. For example, after several years, like 10 years, we did our research, we did our survey. We managed to have increase with their livelihood income generation. They may increase almost like 500% of their income compared to before. But in terms of purchasing power, it does not really move because our economic situation falling down. All the prices like rice before only maybe 5,000, then become 15,000 rupiah. So it's the purchasing power is not so much moved, and that's why it's not really affect the income generation. So the bigger agenda, the political bigger agenda is really influence the whole thing. The microeconomic, global economic influence everything. Then also we do community empowerment, but the government still coming with their program by distributing money. So this is then ruined. We have, when Aceh had tsunami, maybe you remember that, we have been organized in Aceh 4 years. So the women have already have their stall and the thing, and then wiped out by tsunami. It was very, very sad. Then after that, the situation was very bad because many donors coming and flooding Aceh with money. It's really easy. Like they come for meetings, sitting for 30 minutes, they get like 300,000 rupiah. So most of our members disappeared and they don't want to be part of the cooperative group anymore. So we thought, and we said it's second tsunami in Aceh. It's ruined our program. But then we just wait until all the donor programs gone, the international aid programs finish their program there, then we start rebuilding. Then the pilot, usually our program considered pilot when we started in 2000 start organizing, but it's hard to give the lesson learned as an input to bigger program that government have for women's empowerment, poverty alleviation. Is until now we not succeed in terms of integrating this program into the main program. Then most of the women, the organizers now are voluntary, basically voluntary. They are grassroots leaders who organize now. It's no longer us. They are volunteer, but then there are also some program, especially the government program, hire them and pay them. Then not all of them, so few of them get paid. So it's really changed the dynamic at the ground. Of course, the scaling up quality and diversity is very challenging now because we work in 20 provinces. We started in 4 provinces, now we reach 20 provinces. But how to scale, Indonesia is so big. So like we have 30,000 members compared to the national government always tell me if I say something about this, the good learning from this, they said, okay, Nani, so how many villages you work? I said, around 800. Do you know we have 76,000 villages? So it's not represent, they said not represent, what you are doing is not really represent what Indonesia. But I said we work in eastern, western, central, and all the island, only not the whole island. I think we can claim it's represent Indonesia. But they said, no, it's 800 compared to 76,000 is not, it's nothing. So another learning, this is what we have been busy with. I think civil society group in Indonesia very much focus on this part, advocacy work. We focus on how to deal with all the laws, the framework, and other things. I think based on our experience, the most difficult part in women empowerment, especially poor, is this the hidden one, with the norms, values, and beliefs, and also the hidden power. So we have very strong hidden power, which is the fundamentalist, religious fundamentalist group, who against all what we are doing. and they shape the meaning. They shape all this, whatever we want to do, they always against. So this is the hardest part, the biggest part, and the most difficult part. The women's ups and downs. Sometimes they realize they can get out of the box, but sometimes they get in that. For example, we are not against marriage. We are not against family. This is part of the heart of our life. It's really a family thing. But people always tell them, why you join PEKKA? They are promoting divorce. Because what we are doing, we just actually legalize their status and their position. But we are considered promoting divorce, which is again all the values, the mainstream in Indonesia. So this is our reflection. So now we are spending so much as well in this, working with different informal institutions, like religious institution, indigenous system in our country. So we work with leaders, informal leaders, who now slowly support us and believe what we are doing. But it's still a long way to go. This is what our theory of change, and we cannot just work on the policy advocacy, but we have to work also on different power, the formal, non-formal, and we work through around this, all the activity what we are doing. This is the area where we work in 20 provinces. You can see it's almost all part of it. We have not reached Papua yet, but it's small. Of course, it's not in the whole province, but in small part of some district we work here. It quite represent the context. Okay, that's it. Thank you so much.